Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here Monday, March 24th. Good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Right now, we're taking a look at the position that's actually most commonly mocked to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first round and how they can potentially address this position, the interior of the defensive line, in the NFL draft at 5 and beyond. There's a lot of different options for this interior defensive line for the Jaguars, and it's a really interesting group that's already on the team, honestly. There is a lot of intrigue, I think, with the guys that are currently here and the guys that could potentially be added in the draft. And you look at so many talented prospects in this 2025 defensive line class. So we're going to roll through some of the names that the Jaguars could be potentially targeting in the NFL draft. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. So without further ado, at 5, Jacksonville Jaguars are projected most commonly to pick Mason Graham, interior defensive lineman out of Michigan, right? That's the most common pick. And Mason Graham, I think, would be a fantastic pick for the Jaguars at 5. He's 4 on my big board right now, so it aligns with the value. I also think he complements what you have in Jacksonville right now in a big way, because I think he would complement any interior defensive line. And when you look at what the Jaguars currently have, you have Eric Armstead, who is under contract for 2 more years. The Jaguars can get out from under that contract following the 2025 season. It's not as simple as, cut him day 1 of the league year, because you do kind of need to do the post June 1 to really save as much money as you can. But Eric Armstead up there in years, coming off of a down year in Jacksonville last year, where he spent most of the offseason and even into training camp recovering from a knee surgery, and then was asked to play edge. Was he wanting to play edge? Did the Jaguars coaching staff want him to play edge? Did Trent Baalke want him to play edge? I'm not sure. But it was a terrible decision. This is a player who dominated as an interior penetrator in San Francisco for a long time. Eric Armstead said at the conclusion of the season, he will be moving back inside in 2025. So is that someone you could get excited about? Because, a year ago, everyone in Jacksonville was excited about Eric Armstead. Everyone in the NFL thought Eric Armstead was a very good interior defensive lineman. Is that all of a sudden gone because of one down year where he was played out of position? I'm not sure. I'm excited about the opportunity to see what he can do. You also have Devon Hamilton, who in 2024 was coming off of a season in which he had a major health scare, lost a ton of weight, had to work to get back up to weight, couldn't really do it in 2023. And so he was working throughout the end of the 2023 season into the 2024 offseason just to get back into his playing weight. And then he didn't have his best year. Did anyone on the defensive line have their best year? Probably not. I think that Devon Hamilton is a talented, big, 320-pound interior defensive lineman, run stuffer who at the end of 2022 and into the 2023 offseason, into the 2023 training camp and preseason, Devon Hamilton maybe not looking like a all-pro interior defensive lineman, but certainly looking like a guy who could be competing to be in the top 10 conversation at the position, especially when you just talk about the big beefeater types. He was playing great football. Can another year going into this offseason, a little bit more healthy, not having to add the weight to get back to playing weight, all that stuff, could that help Devon Hamilton out with the Jacksonville Jaguars? I think it could. And you look at those two just by themselves, a little bit of reclamation projects with some of the things that happened over the last year. But they're both very talented football players. And then you talk about Mason Smith, Jaguars' 2nd-round pick last year. There's been talk about, maybe he wasn't always in great shape, but when he was on the field, you saw the flashes. You saw the ability, the physical ability from Mason Smith. And another guy who had injuries earlier in his career that kind of derailed things in college. But I think Mason Smith, there's clearly upside there to get excited about if you can get him in the right frame of mind to be the best pro that he can, that's another really good player. But is Devon Hamilton a long-term option? Is Eric Armstead a long-term option? Is Mason Smith a surefire bet? No, none of those guys are. Then, yeah, you can talk about Jordan Jefferson, a couple other guys, but no real big investments. And Murray, you want to come hang out? Murray's saying hi. She's having a little bit of a hard time adjusting to our move to our new house. She's a little whiny, but that's okay. She will adjust. She'll be fine. So that brings us back to Mason Graham, who, again, people were talking about him only playing at under 300 pounds. That was not the case. He was underweight during the offseason because he was trying to test. And then he goes and he's back up to 306 at the pro day. And a guy who the tape does not lie with Mason Graham. He's been dominating since a very young age at the college level at Michigan. There's been guys at Michigan that have gotten drafted playing next to him, and you're evaluating guys, like Chris Jenkins, and you're like, holy, who is that? Mason Graham. Yeah, that guy, he can absolutely ball. And I think he has clear power, heavy hands. He's got a variety of hand moves and really quick feet to pair up to really just put interior offensive linemen on skates. And then he's also got tremendous flexibility. Not a lot of big guys his size have the ability to bend around interior offensive linemen, and he can do that. So Mason Graham would be a great pick for them at 5. And again, most commonly mocked player to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 5 overall right now is Mason Graham. We're going to continue talking about some more of these guys. First, got to remind y'all about Underdog Fantasy. Grab your phone and your dancing shoes. It's time to make entries on March college basketball with Underdog. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DuvalDaily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit to play. Choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, i.e. points, assists, rebounds, and more. Y'all already know. My Gators, they're still dancing. Walter Clayton Jr., I'm going higher on points. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code DuvalDaily. Claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. It must be 18 plus, 90 plus, Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona. Present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 helpline at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So getting back into more of these interior defensive linemen. And we're rolling through the consensus board here. Over on NFL Mock Draft Database, they combine dozens, maybe even hundreds of different mock drafts and big boards to come up with a consensus big board. It's a really helpful tool. Kenneth Grant is number 2 among the interior defensive linemen on the big board. Mason Graham's teammate, and he's another one. You pop on the tape and you see you can't miss Kenneth Grant at 340 pounds, a mountain of a man who has really surprising quickness, flexibility at his size, right? And there's some pass rush upside. He's going to be an absolute bull on the interior when it comes to defending the run. So that's someone else. To me, I don't see a top 5 pick just because I think as good as he is, with being that big, you're probably going to have some, not the highest snap count, right? On the interior. I don't know that he's going to be a true 3-down player consistently playing 8, 9, 10 play drives. I know a lot of interior defensive linemen rotate. Mason Graham will rotate as well. But you want somebody who's going to be out there a ton. And I'm not saying that Kenneth Grant doesn't have the conditioning, but just historically, when you have interior defensive linemen that big, it is difficult to stay on the field as much as some other guys are able to stay on the field, right? So Kenneth Grant, an interesting one, somebody who, if the Jaguars traded down, maybe into the teens, I would definitely feel comfortable with. If somehow he fell to round 2 and the Jaguars hadn't addressed interior defensive linemen, I would be comfortable with. He's not my number 2. I'll tell y'all about the 2 guys who I value in front of him right now. Number 1 is Darius Alexander, and I mocked him to the Jaguars in the 2nd round earlier today. He's an incredibly smart player, studies really well. And when you study your opponent's weaknesses week in and week out, it helps you, especially when you have a physical skill set that Darius Alexander does. Tremendous size, length, athleticism, quick feet, big, strong hands, and he's got a bag of pass rush moves, and he's got versatility to move around the defensive front. You've seen him win from a lot of different alignments. I think he's going to be a dynamic pass rusher and run defender from the interior. So I love Darius Alexander, even though he's a little bit older. And then Derek Harmon is another one who he's aced every step this year. Tremendous final year in college at Oregon, transferred there from Michigan State. Played great for them both against the run and the pass. He uses his strength and his length against the run to lock out offensive linemen, and he can stack and shed and play peekaboo a little bit and play really well in the run defense department. And then he's also got a really nice skill set, explosive off the ball. Again, that length in the hands to get past interior offensive linemen. So I think he's a balanced interior defensive lineman too, who can be on the field a ton for you and tested really well, played well just consistently every time he's been on the field. So you look at those two guys, to me, they're a tier below Mason Graham, but they're my next two. And then you have Kenneth Grant, right? And then you have Walter Nolan. And Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, I think, should be a first-round pick. You see him mocked to the Eagles a lot at 32. If the Eagles are able to land Walter Nolan to pair with Jalen Carter and David and all those guys, the NFL cannot let that happen. Walter Nolan is going to be a dominant interior pass rusher. Is he going to be a great run defender? Is he going to be the most consistent guy on the planet? I don't know. But this guy's going to be a problem as an interior pass rusher. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Former number 1 overall recruit in the country. Don't let him fall to the Philly. Do not let that happen. Then we've got some more guys who I value pretty highly. So the consensus big board has Graham at 5, Grant at 22, Nolan at 27, Harmon at 28, Alexander at 46. Then at 47, Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. And he's fluctuated in weight some. I don't think that he carries his weight poorly at all at like 330 pounds. He moved really well at the NFL Combine at his weight. And you see that on tape. I mean, he's a guy who he might win the quickest at the point of attack just with his hand placement. Not necessarily like a hand move, but his just ability to disengage. I think that strength and explosiveness, it makes it really difficult for offensive linemen to handle him. I think Tyleik Williams is going to be a better player than he's been being given credit for right now. And if a team gets him in the second round, they're going to be very happy that they did. At 58, you've got Alfred Collins, the defensive lineman out of Texas. He is quite simply the best run defender in the class, but he basically provides zero pass rush right now. Does it appear that there's pass rush upside? Yes, but he's an older prospect as well. I think he's already 23 years old, played a lot of football. You would expect there to be some more pass rush to his game, but he's got great length, very big hands, very strong, physical at the point of attack, great run defender. If you are looking for a run specialist on the interior of your defensive line, Alfred Collins can be that guy for you. TJ Sanders is at 63 out of South Carolina, and to me, I think he should be a lot higher too. He came in at the Combine almost 300 pounds, and he's a guy you worried, I think was listed around 290, 295. You worried it might be a little bit lighter than that, but that was not the case with him. And he's another guy who I think that he stacks and sheds really well. He uses his length on the interior, which is pretty good length for an interior defensive lineman, and also just kind of natural leverage. He's pretty flexible and bendy at his size, and he's explosive, really good pass rusher, but I think he's going to give you more as a run defender than you would expect for someone who's sub 300, so he can be a value in the second round as well. A few more guys we can look at here, really a lot more guys, because this is a really deep interior defensive line class, and I think that's what's pretty exciting. And really, even if you don't necessarily have a need there, it's like, go get yourself one of these guys just to build out for the future. Deone Walker, it's a sad situation because you saw so much promise in him earlier in his career, had a pretty poor final season, has not tested well, struggles with pad level, body composition is an issue. So I would caution any team from taking him before, late day 3. Quite honestly, it's a big project. But at 79, Omar Norman Lott, defensive lineman out of Tennessee. They listed him way too heavy. I think they listed him at like 315. He came in closer to 300, a little bit under. But that's not surprising with the way he plays. He's super explosive off the ball. I think an upside guy, somebody who the arrow is pointing up with Omar Norman Lott. I like him a lot. No pun intended there. 81 overall, Joshua Farmer, interior defensive lineman out of Florida State. Another one who may be a little bit underdeveloped in terms of his technical prowess and his bag of pass rush moves, but he's got some upside to his game as well, and he is very explosive and powerful. He will knock you back off the ball, and he will continue to work throughout the rep, and I think he has a chance to be a starter in the NFL. Shamar Turner, you heard some negative things from him out of Texas A&M, and he's at 83 overall. He's a good athlete. You see the flashes on tape. You see the run defense, the effort. I think you see a smart football player. He's always communicating at the line of scrimmage. I love to see that. And so he's going to be a really interesting one to see where he ends up landing. I think he might land higher than some folks are projecting right now. At 104, Ty Robinson out of Nebraska absolutely blew up the combine. He's a linearly explosive athlete. He plays with great effort. He plays with his hair on fire, but not going to be the best in terms of lateral agility, change of direction. So that's going to be a limiting factor in some regards, but still a really impressive guy overall who I think if you could get early on day 3, that would make a lot of sense. And same thing with CJ West, who not the same type of player as Ty Robinson, but at 111 overall, CJ West out of Indiana, he's got more explosiveness than you would expect for someone who's about 315 pounds. A great run defender, but I think he's going to give you some juice as a pass rusher as well. Jordan Phillips, he pops, man. I mean, this is a crazy athlete at like 320 pounds at 116 overall on the consensus big board. I think he should be a day 2 guy. I don't see any two ways about it. Like this guy should not make it past round 3 with his physical ability and the way he played this past year at Maryland. Jamari Caldwell, 127 out of Oregon, Derek Harmon's teammate. He is huge, like 340 plus pounds, but incredibly quick and nimble at that size. He's somebody who I think is going to surprise some folks at how high he ends up going. Big fan of him as well. So you're starting to see this picture where even if maybe you miss out on Mason Graham or Derek Harmon or Darius Alexander, who I think all 3 of those guys are incredibly balanced. They're going to be 3 down guys. You're going to want to have them on the field as much as you possibly can. There's different flavors of players throughout this draft that you can add. And another one is Aeneas Peebles at 137, who we've talked about on the show a lot. And he's an interior defensive lineman out of Virginia Tech who is very undersized, but he is incredibly difficult for interior offensive linemen to deal with his technicality, his natural leverage, his explosiveness. He wreaks havoc. He wreaked havoc during his college career, at the Senior Bowl, did a great job at the Combine as well. That's somebody I would really like to see the Jaguars add, and probably a rotational interior penetrator, specialist, right? But I think that there's a lot of value in that. You have some other guys down the board here, Elijah Roberts, JJ Pegues, who, Wildcat quarterback, tight end, running back, interior defensive lineman. He's done it all. So that's going to be a fun guy to see where he lands. Ty Hamilton, Vernon Broughton, Cam Jackson. These are all names to keep an eye on as well. I think Tim Smith out of Alabama, who was a Senior Bowl guy, had some good reps there as well. There's just an unbelievable list of interior defensive linemen who are going to make some sort of impact at the NFL level, whether it be as starters or rotational guys. I think Junior Tafuna is another one to keep an eye on. I thought he had a really good week at the Senior Bowl out of Utah. So that's just kind of a primer to get y'all ready for some of these interior defensive linemen. I still think there's a very good chance Mason Graham's the pick at 5. If not, I would expect the Jaguars to go interior defensive line, not necessarily because they have to have it right now, but because there's a ton of value in this class and because you look at what the depth chart could look like in 2026, 2027, and there's nobody there, right? So I think that's a position you got to build out long-term, and this is a great year to do that. Let me know who y'all want in the comment section below. Have a good one.